Hey folks, it's Tom with Tom Cisco Labs. I'm going to show you how I'm going to expand my internet into my garage so that I can do live streams and stuff from out here in my garage. Okay, so real quick here, what we have is these Ubiqiti access points. These are Nanostation Loco M2s. These can go up to about 5 kilometers in distance from each other as long as they have a clear line of sight. They just have an Ethernet port on the bottom. They come with these power injectors, and these will go, inside where you connect them into your network. Will connect to your LAN, like your router or switch, and the other side will be the PoE that goes out to power up and connect your access point. So you don't have any electronics that plug in that need to go outside. It all powers up right over this one Ethernet port in the unit. So I'm going to show you now how we get these all programmed up and ready to go, and then we'll get these things mounted up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and show you how you program this access point. I've got it plugged in to my Ethernet port and I've got it powered up. So what we want to do first is go ahead and open our system preferences and go to network, and you'll want to go to control panels and like network settings and network adapter settings or something on a Windows machine. If you have a Windows machine, you should just buy Mac. So we're going to go ahead and set this to manually assign an address on my LAN adapter here. My Ethernet adapter, and this is 192.168.1. anything but 20, we'll say 50. And we're going to do a Class C mask, which is 3 255s and a 0. And we don't need to put a router in here because we're not routing out this thing as a gateway. So on a Windows box, that will be called a gateway. I'm not worried about DNS server at this point or anything like that. So we'll just say apply. And now what we can do is open our terminal. If you're new to Mac, that will be under Utilities, and it will be called Terminal. If you're on a Windows machine, you want to look for the command prompt or click on your little start button and go to the search and type CMD. And now we're going to ping it, make sure we can see it. Its IP address by default, new out of the box, is 192.168.1.20, and we see we're getting a reply from it, so that's all good. And so now we're ready to go ahead and open up our Firefox. You can of course probably use Chrome or Safari. Well, if you're on Windows, you can't use Safari probably, but you can use your whatever web browser. IE doesn't like bad certificates, as you'll see we're going to have here in a minute, so you might want to stay away from IE. And there's our 1.20, and it's saying your connection's not secure. Now this is just because it has to run a fake certificate on the little box with the inside IP. It's not really insecure, so just say advanced. Go to add exception and say confirm security exception. And so the default username and password on this will be UBNT and UBNT. And we have to agree to the terms and service and say login. Oh, we have to select our country as well. We're in the United States. Okay, so we come to the main screen here. The first thing that I want to do is actually update the system firmware on this guy. So we're going to go here and say we can't really check the firmware. I'm going to dismiss this password thing. But we want to click on this check now, because it's going to pop up a little box here and say I can't connect to the internet right now, and it can't because we haven't programmed it on our network yet. So you can just click this downloads page, and it'll bring this up. And so you want to go down here, and you have an Air Max product if you have a Nanostation Loco. And under that, we'll see Nanostation M. I'm sorry, Nanostation M. I have Bridge M. So Nanostation M. And we can go down here and say we have a Loco M5 is what I have. And then it'll give you two options here. We have, version 616, and we have it for XW and XM. So if we go back here, we'll see we're on version 5611, and we have XW. So XW is the newer board revision, XM is the older board revision. So we're going to go ahead and get this firmware right here for the XW and accept this. And we're going to download the file and just say save file. And it has completed, so I'm going to go ahead and show this in Finder. And so it's under downloads, and that's the file. So now I can go back here, hit browse, click on downloads, go pick my file right here and say open. And then we can click upload. Okay, now it tells us the firmware is uploaded. Do we want to update or discard? We're going to say we want to update. And now don't power anything off or do anything weird. Just let it work here. You'll see the lights blink and start kind of going back and forth on the wireless meter on the back of the unit. That means it's working and doing its thing. Okay, and now we come back to the login page. We're just going to hit login in here again, put in the password if you didn't save it. And we're going to dismiss the little orange box again. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead here on the system tab now. And we see that we're on version 616 of the firmware. That's great. I'm going to go ahead and make some other changes while I'm here. I'm going to make my administrator account name admin. I don't like to leave it as the default, even though admin's pretty easy to guess to. And we're going to go ahead and give it a better name here. I'm going to call it Nanostation House, because this is the one I'm going to have at the house. And I think that's all we really have to do. Let's go ahead and take these changes. Okay, and it's going to ask us to change our password. The current one is Ubiqiti. That's the default. And I'm going to give it my password. And hit change. Okay, so we have a change here. We're going to go ahead and apply that change. And it's going to reboot the unit real quick, and then it'll be right back. It should just take 15-20 seconds or so. So I'm going to come over here to my wireless tab. And I'm going to make this an access point. Okay, and then I'm going to enable WDS mode. That will make it a transparent bridge. Since this is the one at my house, it needs to be an access point. The ones at your remote ends, right, that are, I'm just going to have one remote in the garage, but if I put one down in the shed one day, that one will be, those will both be stations. You have one access point and all the stations aimed to it. So now we're going to call our wireless ID, let's call it Legos USA. There we go. That's what I'm going to call it. And we can leave everything else here at defaults. The only thing that I may change once I get these up is I may reduce the power back to the absolute minimum level I need to get a good signal, which will keep it from interfering with the other things, and it can prevent weird signal reflections that can degrade your signal. But for now, we're going to leave it at max, and then we'll scale it back once we get them up in the air. So the other thing that I do want to change here is my encryption. I want to run WPA to AES because it's the best. I'm going to use a pre-shared key, and I'm going to type my key in here. And we're going to go ahead and hit change. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply these settings. Okay, so under the network tab, you just want to make sure the network mode is bridge. It should be by default, but double check that. I'm not going to change the IP address just yet. Go down here. That's all fine. We don't need to change anything there. Don't change anything here. That should all be good. By default. Actually, there are two things I'm going to change here. One is I don't want to require it to have a secure HTTPS. I don't want to deal with the certificate errors normally. And I don't want an SSH server enabled. I don't normally need to SSH into this. It's kind of like a telnet or a command line interface. And I might as well just leave that turned off if I don't, need to use it. It's one less thing that's open for a hacker to try to get access into. So we'll go ahead and hit change. And I'll go ahead and hit apply. And it'll reboot again. Okay, so that's all the changes I need to make to this access point, except I want to change its IP address. And I want it to match the scheme of my internal IP addresses that I have on my router. Many people will have a 192.168.1 network. That's what a lot of routers come with as default. I changed my default to something completely different. But make sure that you have a unique IP address on this that's in your network. And so that way you can get into it to management. You may be able to leave it as 192.168.1.20. Nothing else on your network has that address. You'll be fine. If you need to make sure nothing else on your network has that address, open up your terminal program and ping the IP address you want to set it to and make sure there's no response. So the first three would need to stay the same as the rest of your network. You can also see what kind of you're running. So I'm on my wireless network right now that's internal to my house. I can do if config. And I can go to my LAN adapter. Where's the IPv6 address? Okay, here it is. Here's my internal network. So it's actually on this EN0, and there's that. So I'm on 10.100.110. That's my internal address. I'm 106. The broadcast here is 255. So anything from 1 to 254 is valid, but you keep these same first three. So I could say, I think I'm going to make this I'll do a ping 10.110. There we go. .100.110. Let's say 253. I see that the request is timed out. So I know there's nothing on my network on that IP address. I'm going to go 10.100.110.253. That's what I'm going to make it. And the gateway, it's weird. You don't need a gateway, but it requires you to put one in here. This thing's not really ever going to talk off the network, but I'll go ahead and put the gateway in. For me, that's .1. That would be the IP address of your normal router. And we'll go ahead and hit change. and I'll apply it, and now I won't be able to see it again until it's actually plugged into my network and working. So what I'm going to do is go plug this access point into my router and set it there, and then I'm going to get the or this nano into my router and set it there, and then I'm going to go get my other nano and we'll program it up and get it set up as if it's the garage, and they should connect. I should then be able to turn off my wireless and get internet through them. Okay, so now I've got the other access point plugged in again. I still have my IP address here that I set up before under the networking, and this default IP should be 1.20 on this one as well. And we can ping it, so that's good. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up my Firefox and type in that IP address. And we got to tell it yes, it's fine. We don't care about the certificate thing again. We'll add the exception. And we'll say confirm. Again, the password's going to be UBNT, UBNT. And we want to select our country as United States. And we're going to agree to the terms of use. And we can update that, that's fine. We're going to dismiss this warning about the administrator password again. And again, we're just going to come over here to the system tab first. You see this is also on an old firmware. We're going to go ahead and browse, downloads. Here's our XW firmware. We'll say open, upload it. And we're going to go ahead and update. And we're going to wait through this again. Alright, now we've updated the firmware and restarted. And so now we're ready to log back in. I'm going to dismiss this warning again. I'm going to go ahead and change my admin user to admin. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one Nanostation Garage. And that's about all I need to change there. Go ahead and change that. It'll make us change our password here. We'll put in the default one of UBNT, and then I'll put in my password. Change. And we'll go ahead and apply our changes. Alright, so now here we are on the services page again, the services tab. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the HTTPS and uncheck this SSH. And that's all we need to change there. Go ahead and hit change and apply. Sometimes it may hang like this when you do the secure connection thing and turn it off. You may have to go back in here and type HTTP / because it's no longer secure in the IP. That happens. Okay, so now that we're back in, we can go ahead and go to our wireless tab. And we're going to go ahead and leave this as station because it's going to be a station, but we need to check the wireless distribution service, the WDS transparent bridge mode. And we want to change this. I'm going to change this to Lego USA again. And we're not going to lock this to a specific access point. You can put the MAC address of the other access point here and lock them together so that it can't associate with anything else. I'm not worried about that. The channel width, we'll leave it at the auto 2040. That'll give us the fastest amount of negotiated speed. Everything there stays the same. We're just going to go down here to WPA2 AES and we're going to type in the key that we put in before on the other router. Oh, I messed up. So we'll let these changes apply now. It's going to take a minute. Okay, it's back up. And that's all we have to worry about. At this point, we're actually should have them connected. If we go to our main screen here, we should see that we have a connection. This is the quality of signal. If I aim it a little better, it'll probably get a better connection. Yeah. It's going through several walls right now, so it's just kind of near end radiation is all that's going on. And so what we'll go ahead and do now is go over here to our network, and I want to change this IP to be another IP in my network's range. So I'll make this 10.100.110.254 right there, and then we'll change the gateway to be this .1 address, and that's all I need to do there. I'm going to go ahead and hit change. I'm going to go ahead and apply this. While that's applying, we're going to go ahead and go up here and turn our Wi-Fi off on this MacBook. And then once this boots back up, we should have internet connection through the wireless bridges back to my router. Oh, I'm going to have to change my network connection back to DHCP and apply here. Should come up with an address if it's working. If it works. It's still booting up. Yep, and it pulled a network off of my other router, or a network address off my other router. And we're green, and so now we should be able to get back into this Ubiqiti, and then we should be able to come over here and do 10.100.110.253, which is the IP address of the other one, and we can see that we can see it as well, and we should be on the internet. And we are. So that's all good. Alright, so now we're going to go out and hang these things up and get them aimed in and get the power set, and I'll show you how that process works. Alright, so here is the Ubiqiti access point on my garage, hanging on its mast. It comes with a plastic zip tie, like a real thick one. It doesn't really work well to hold that in place, so I use this stainless steel hose clamp, and I just zip tied a piece of Cat 5 together. I've left a drip loop here so that I don't have to worry about water running down the wire and getting into the garage, and I've sealed it off real good with some clear silicone. And here is where this wire from the Ubiqiti runs in right here. It comes to the power injector unit, and then this blue wire comes from the power injector unit over to my inside access point switch. This is really a router I'm using as an access point and a switch. I just don't have anything hooked to the WAN port. I've disabled DHCP, and I put a LAN IP on it so that I can manage it on my network if I need to change the wireless settings or a password or anything like that. Alright, so here's the access point on the side of the house, aiming back towards the garage. As close as these are, it's not going to make any difference. But if you're going to try to take this out to its 5-kilometer range, you wouldn't probably want it sitting right here, right beside this aluminum siding that close. You'd want to get it farther out or higher up and over, something like that. But for this close range, it won't make a difference. And I've got my wire running down. Since this is just tucked in the siding right there, and then it runs down around the house and goes across the basement, There's no reason to leave a drip loop here, but if I was drilling right into the house, I would leave a drip loop. And so here you can see standing directly under that access point is, or directly under that Ubiqiti bridge, is where it aims right back here to this other bridge that's mounted on the garage. All right, so I've got the two nanostations up here. You can see that they're connected. We've got 96% signal strength with 91% air max capacity. That's really good. So your horizontal, vertical dBs here, this is what would normally tell you how well your antennas are aimed, and you want to aim for those two numbers to be as close to the same as possible. Now, as near as these are, this is no big deal. As you would get, trying to get a long haul link up, then you really want to get those two numbers just as close as together as possible, like no more than 3 or 4 dBs apart. But in this situation, with them being real close, they're going to see each other, and I have a feeling that this has more to do with that aluminum spouting than it does with them not being aimed well. But I wanted to show you, after I got these up, I dialed my wireless power back, my output power back. The max on this is 23. I've dialed them back to 0 on both ends, and they will go to -4. So once I hit the -1, I started to see my power drop off a few points, so I brought it back to 0, and it locked right back in. And then go back when it's raining and that kind of stuff, check them and see if they drop. You might need to bump them up a little bit. So basically these put out, I think, like 250 milliwatts is the most you're allowed to put out on Wi-Fi. And so every 3 dB is effectively double power, right? And so at 23 dB, we'd be looking at like 7.6 times. So we've subtracted 23 dB, so we cut that in half 7.6 times. So we're probably looking at, really right now, these are putting out about 1.5 milliwatts. So very, very low power there. But that's all that's needed with those two access points being that close together. Any more than that, it's just throwing extra RF that doesn't need to be out there, and that can interfere with other things that are farther away. So you want to dial that back, but it also prevents like weird signal reflections where the signal goes well past your access point and then it bounces off of a metal object that comes back at your access point and then causes interference with itself. So you always want to dial that signal back as far as you can to still have a good reliable link. And I'm running that on both ends. And so I have tested these, and I can get a full 100 megabits across them with no problem. And they would probably go faster than that, but I only have 100 meg switches on the ends. So that's as fast a throughput as I can get, and that's more than I need. So they're working very well. They've been up for about a week now. I've done a couple of live streams across them on my other channel, and they're working great. All right, this is Tom with Tom Cisco Labs. Hope this helps someone. Have a good day.